Hello, welcome to the Design in Action video lecture. So obviously in this lecture I'm going to talk about the video assignment itself. Besides describing what you need to do to fulfill the requirements of the video, I will give you some tips as well as to what you might want to do to try and think about how to create a better video for this assignment. Okay, the nitty-gritty is actually found in the assessment 2 description, but I'll repeat it here for you. What you need to do is actually produce a video that is under 6 minutes. Of course, you can produce right up to 6 minutes and a little bit over, it's okay, but I think anything more than 6 minutes is going to be too long. If you can get it shorter, it'll be a lot better too. First of all, what you must ensure that you have is actually basically 3 sections in your video. So that's an introductory section, where your team will talk about basically the start with introducing your design focus. So what are you dealing with? What is your design brief? What are the experiences you're trying to support with your particular design? And then you want to introduce some of the problems that you have found by doing the user research, or you've identified that it's worth supporting in commuting. And also what kind of opportunities or user experiences that you want to support in that particular type of commuting. Of course, explain why is it important, and this is one that people usually forget. Why is it important that, let's say, we support students who are traveling, doing long commutes from home to university, okay, 3 days a week? Why is it important? Why should we care? So try and find a reasonable motivation for doing stuff like that. Please don't say that I make you to do that because that's the assignment title. So you need to find some value about why you want to deliver this solution to support this demographics. And then after you finish doing that, then you want to quickly introduce the persona that's relevant to the project itself. Ideally, you would want to link a persona to someone that's maybe acting in the design in action video after the persona. So it doesn't need to be the same person, but at least the same gender or embodying the same kind of characteristics in the persona that you have just presented. Now, don't spend too much time presenting the persona. So you can still present like a screenshot of a persona, but I'd rather you not. So just present the most essential characteristics of the persona, like what you've done with your journey map. That's really good, and maybe a little bit more. And then you move into the design in action part, which is actually about how then the design that you have produced as a solution is being used in action. One of the problems that people usually have, teams usually have, is actually moving from 3 to 4. So there's no kind of introduction to kind of say, okay, and so now that we've explained what's going on, so we want to show you a 2 to 3 minute video about how our solutions being used, or how our solutions being used in different situations or scenarios. Once that video part finishes of how the solution is being demoed, then you cut back to the team or someone from the team to briefly reflect on the lessons that you learned about the project itself. So here's time for you to talk together as a team to work out what you want to talk about. Like, was it difficult recruiting people to be an actor? Was it difficult, what aspect of doing this project, what aspect of doing this video, what aspect of finding a solution for this is difficult. We would prefer you to talk about basically developing the concept itself, so the problems associated with developing the solution, rather than the problems associated with making a video. Right. So now I want to talk about some ideas and some tips which you can use to help make your film, your 6-minute video, a lot more interesting. And to do so, I want to introduce camera shots and filmmaking vocabulary and ideas in terms of how you might want to use that to create your storyboard. So that said, having a storyboard is really important before you start shooting, because what happens that if you don't have a storyboard, then you just shoot without thinking and planning, and so you don't end up having what you want. Okay, storyboarding something through helps you to decide how to shoot, how close to shoot, how far to stay back, what to focus on, and whether you capture all the necessary things that you need to capture. Okay, now the storyboard doesn't need to be handed up. The storyboard doesn't need to be a piece of art that can be hung on a wall. It can be just stick figures with very simple directions, but you need them. Okay, especially for the whole team to decide that you've covered everything. So let me continue. So what I want to introduce you in this slide here is actually about the different ideas that people talk about in camera angles. Okay, we are hoping that you learn how to create like a narrative storyboard. Basically, it's a storyboard that tells a story. Okay, that's why it's called a narrative storyboard. Now, the first picture you see there is actually called an extreme long shot. So you see that a lot in films, for those of you who watch a lot of movies. Okay, so when you look at something from a distance, so probably your main actor is actually in that black in the middle of the frame itself, but you can see it's an extreme long shot. You don't see a lot of details, but you see the environment, you see the scene, you see where it's set at. It's probably like a railway station with a railway line on the left. Okay, and there are other people. There's someone with a child here, and then there's a wall there and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so it's basically setting out the details of the location, and all that. There might be even a clock telling you what time it is that's hanging from the ceiling itself. Okay, then we call a long shot. A long shot is actually when you come closer but just focusing on the person. You still don't see a lot of detail, but you see the full height of the person. Maybe in this case a person's holding like an iPad or a tablet. Okay, medium shot is actually a person just basically shoulders, head and shoulders. Okay, it could be also over the head, over the shoulder shots. It's the same, but it's from behind. So you don't see the facial expressions itself, but you do see what the person is looking at. Okay, so you're kind of looking over the shoulder like you do, let's say, seeing in a bus, looking over the shoulder of someone behind you. Point of view is actually even closer, just focusing on the solution itself. Okay, so you're just focusing on what the person is seeing. And finally, you can do a real close-up to actually show the details of the interface. So that's where, when you use close-up, you want to show like specific things that's happening on the interface that you've designed. Okay, in the over the head, over the shoulder shot, you might not see the detail of the interface, so you can still fake stuff up. Okay, so you can pretend someone is seeing something that you have not created. But by the time you do a close-up, then you need to show something that's definitely going to be there. Okay, the point of view shot also shows things, but not so much in detail, right? So these are the different shots that you need to create some sort of movement, to create some sort of interest, to focus the attention of the viewer, to understand the setting, to see what's happening right down to the close-up. So you need all this different angle throughout your storyboard. And I'm going to talk just one more slide after this. So start with developing the storyline, what you're trying to tell. Now, for some of you, you might want to tell 3 different stories where there are 3 different scenarios where this is taking place. Okay, so the experience itself would be expressed by the person's face, and maybe like there might be thought bubbles coming up, and they might be kind of speaking in their mind. Okay, so like this is voiceover stuff. It could be a subtitle. Okay, so you need to find ways in which how you want to express the experience of the person. Because in the film itself, you can only see what the person is doing. Unless, of course, the person is interacting with someone else in the film and then telling them how they're feeling. So it's your job to then decide how you want to express the user experience. So develop a storyline where, what are you trying to highlight? What is the person doing? How's the person using the tech? And how does the interaction with the tech help achieve the goal? Right? So what you do in the film and what you decide in the storyline is basically walking through the different features and functions of your solution. Now, if you've got a lot of functions and features, talk to your tutor. I would say 2 or 3 of those separate different functions will be enough instead of doing everything. All right? For instance, it could be just a registration phase. There could be a using kind of on public transport to do one thing. I think that's fine. All right. And again, I think the hardest thing for you to do is you can actually illustrate how someone's goal is being achieved using a film, but it's much more difficult to illustrate the emotion, the experience of the person. And so you need to find ways to somehow make that really apparent, like a lot of films do. Okay. So basically, I think when you do a storyboard, the first frame is probably the most important, and the first frame should be always, we recommend an extreme long shot, because that's what it does. It sets the scene of the storyboard. It gives an overview of the location where the interaction takes place and shows who the people involved. It could show a very, very crowded platform. It could show a very lonely person waiting at the bus stop by himself, or it could be showing other people kind of, what kind of people are waiting for the bus. So you give an idea, and you might want to give an idea of what the time of the day is. You could see someone sort of flicking at a watch. So you want to give a lot of details here in terms of the background. Okay, so that's called the extreme long shot. Usually what happens is that you move closer. Let's say in this case, the person looks at an announcement on the wall. Okay, so you want to go down and focus down and see what the person is looking at. And then you see the QR code. So the person then flips an old phone. So this picture is from an old day. It's an old phone. Flips up and actually trying to sort of take a QR code. And this is a close-up of it. And then it goes back to an extreme long shot again. Right? So this comes from a chapter from a book called Sketching User Experience, and I'm going to upload it to the week 11 Canvas site. Okay, so you can actually have a look at it. So basically, this is what I would like you and recommend you to do when you do your storyboard, to think about the story and how the different shots are used to focus and direct attention of the viewer. Some advice, further advice. So this is the 3 sections here, as I said about of your video. First is the introduction. So sometimes people can, when you're introducing your project itself, you could do a set of talking heads. So like, if there's 6 of you, you might choose 5 people to do that. So there might be one person saying a line, and then another person saying another line, another person saying the third line, and so, or you can actually have like showing a video of, let's say, the problem on public transport, but without any actors in it, but just basically showing problems, or showing situations in public transport, but having a voiceover talking about the problem itself. Okay, or it can be really creative, and someone could be playing like a reporter doing a news report about a particular problem at in terms of commuting. Okay, and by doing that, reporting actually the problem that you're trying to solve, and then the user experience that you're trying to support. Okay, and then you introduce the persona, and then you introduce, okay, now this is the design in action section. Okay, that's what I talked about, that's often missing. So the design in action section is actually the longest segment of the lot. So out of the 6 minutes, I would say this is more than 2 minutes. Probably, definitely the longest, and it's distinct from the other segments, so it should feel quite different. And finally, it's just a quick conclusion, so that's probably like a minute and a bit on the lessons that you learn about doing this project itself. Some other tips, subtitles or text to highlight the important points. So if something is happening, you might have text coming up on the screen to again draw the eye of the viewer, and also emphasize certain points. Let's say the person is talking, you might want to emphasize certain things using subtitles as well. And if you choose to use background music like a lot of student teams have done before, choose carefully, because it could set a particular mood, a particular tone that might not be appropriate to the scene that is unfolding. But more importantly, manage the volume carefully, because a lot of times we find that the background music just drowns out what's happening, which is the most important thing. Okay. Of course, not everyone in the team needs to be in the video, so think carefully about how you want to use people, and also think about the different camera angles, as I've said, and actually the overall mood you're trying to present. So what's the marking criteria? Now, this marking criteria is actually already in the assignment description, but most importantly, I want to describe what they mean. So in the orange, the first thing that we're looking for is, do we understand what the solution is doing? Do you understand who the typical users are that you're trying to support? So have you told us who those users are? Why is the solution desirable to these users? Why is there a need for us to solve? So why is it important to solve this problem? Okay, what experience that it tries to support? Okay, And more importantly, have you told us how, very briefly, how does the solution do the above? How does the solution solve this problem? So you can describe it briefly how it does that, okay? And then we see how that happens in action, which is then the design and action part. Okay, so here we're looking at the quality of and the thinking behind the solution itself. So for us, when we look at it, it says, wow, you know, the way that it's used is very, very thoughtful, or it's really appropriate for public transport, it's appropriate for the kind of person, it's appropriate for the kind of the place, the feedback, and all that sort of stuff. So we want to see how good the solution is. Okay, and we also want to see at the end of it, actually, overall, how effective your video is as a communication medium. So do we get bored? Do we just like find out, oh my God, this is dragging on, okay? Or, hey, it's going too fast, we don't know what's going on, or what the hell is going on? The one thing is this, and then there's something else here. I don't understand what's going on. Okay, so that's where you get problems in terms of marks. I have reconfigured this slightly to make it clearer. So altogether, this is 20 points. So I'm going to give 4 marks to the explanation that the team does, okay, right at the beginning itself. And clear explanation of how the various elements of the solution support and improve the specified user experience. That should be seen in the action of the video itself. I should say, okay, this is going to support that. That's going to support this, okay? And also in the video itself, we would see during the video in action, design in action, we should be able to see the quality of the final design solution. We should be able to get a sense of, wow, you know, it's really appropriate. Okay, it's really useful, or that's the right kind of solution to be used in this situation itself. But overall, we're going to give 8 marks for the quality of the communication media. Okay, is the video focused on the topic? Is it engaging? Do we really enjoy watching it? Has it been well conceived, really thought through and put together? Okay, in other words, the viewer is not feeling bored or distracted. The content is not rambling like, you know, we're getting like, oh, come on, you know, get on with it. Okay, the video and the audio quality is good enough to hear and watch, and there's subtitles when needed. Okay, so overall, it's like, do we enjoy? Do we get something out of it? Do we understand what went on? Right, so I hope this really helps you, and this, you've got a couple of weeks to go with this, and I'm sure you can ask further questions during the next Q&A session, and also, you know, check with either me or your tutors. All the best.